Hello, Mr. Musa. How are you?
Well, nice. Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Nice to finally meet you. I heard so much about you, especially through your site. Nice to meet you. My name is Deacon Isaac. I'm a deacon here at Israel United in Christ. Just a little bit about who we are, since we're the ones that reached out to you. We are a faith-based organization based out of the United States of America. And our sole purpose is to unite the diaspora of our people that have been colonized and spread about through slavery, and teach them who they are according to the Bible, that they are the biblical descendants of the Israelites. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of that history, being that we do have Hebrew Israelite brothers based out of Jerusalem today, in the land of Israel today, which you are probably fully aware of. So we wanted to reach out to you because we know that we have a lot of brothers and sisters in the Palestinian community. And oftentimes when you see the depiction of Palestinians on social media, you don't see a lot of Afro-Palestinians. You see mainly people of Arab descent. That's the picture that they put throughout the whole media. But we would like to bring awareness to the Afro-Palestinians. And we want to give you, this platform to speak about the current situation in Israel, the past and present. So if you want to give a nice short formal introduction of who you are to the audience, that would be excellent.
My name is Musa Kous. I am.
Your mic is muted, Musa. Musa, your mic. Unmute your mic. Okay, there we go.
My name is Musa Kous. I am the executive director of the African community in Jerusalem. Our community, we are a descendant from four African countries, namely from Chad, Nigeria, Senegal, and Sudan. Our ancestors, they are all Muslims, and the main purpose for immigrating to Jerusalem in order to perform the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. After performing the pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia, it is a habit, used to be a habit among Africans, that any person who performed the pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia and then perform the pilgrimage to Jerusalem, this will give him a high status in the society when he goes back to his country. Unfortunately, our ancestors, when they came to Jerusalem, some of them, they work as they used to migrate to Jerusalem, since during the Ottoman Empire, and some of them used to work as guards for the mosque, for the entire mosque. And they used to open and close. They used to hold the keys for the mosque, for Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they were in charge of opening and closing all the gates to the mosque. And it happens that, and they were very strict and very stubborn. They won't let any non-Muslims to have access to the mosque. And it happens that during the Ottoman Empire, and Palestinian historians called Arif al-Arafi wrote this in his book, a brief summary of Jerusalem. He said in his book that the Ottoman governor of Jerusalem was obliged to give the guards the mosque a day off in order to enable one of his guests, I think he's from Germany, in order to visit the mosque. So the Africans used to be present here even from during the Ottomans, during the Ottoman empires. But by the end of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottomans and the start of the Arab revolt against the rule of the Ottomans, the Ottomans converted the place where we are currently living into prisons. And afterwards, when the British controlled Jerusalem in 1917, they shut down the prison, and since then we are living in these two compounds, which actually were built by the Mamluks more than 700 years ago, and they were actually built in order to host pilgrims to Jerusalem and poor people of Jerusalem, to host them there in these two compounds. But as I told you, since 1917, we start to settle and to live permanently in these two buildings. The number, our number, the Africans used to number more than 3,000 people in the old city of Jerusalem. But during, during the why they settled here, although they settled in these two compounds, although some of Palestinian families, four Palestinian families, they wrote a petition to the High Commissioner of Jerusalem. They don't want him to approve or to accept the Africans to be staying in these two compounds, which are very adjacent to the mosque. But actually, at that time, the Mufti, the great Mufti of Jerusalem, his name was Haj Amin Husseini, who used to trust the Africans, and was he used to take 6 of them as bodyguards for him. And it happens when the British issued an arrest warrant against the Mufti. The bodyguards defended the Mufti while he was on his way to the mosque in order to perform the prayers. And during that incident, the British troops opened fire and shot dead one of his bodyguards. And I think this incident helped to convince the Mufti to use his influence in order to help the Africans to stay permanently, to lease these two compounds for the African. And since, as I told you, we are living in these two compounds, and they are no more used as to host pilgrims, because the African occupied these two compounds. During the afterwards, and during Jordanian times, when Jordan controlled over Jerusalem in 1948, the Jordanians issued all the Palestinians, all the people in Palestine, in West Bank and Jerusalem, they gave them the Jordanian passport, the Jordanian nationality, but excluded the African community from that because they considered the Africans, they are not original people of the country. And for this reason, the Africans, we don't hold the Jordanian citizenship like other people in West Bank and Jerusalem. Knowing that, when the African, the first generation, immigrated to Jerusalem, their countries of origin were used to be as foreign colonies. For example, namely, particularly French colonies.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Myself, my father immigrated to Jerusalem in 1942, and at that time he immigrated from Chad. Chad at that time was a French colony, and to Jerusalem with the French people. He left Chad to Saudi Arabia to perform the pilgrimage with the French passport. And when he came to Jerusalem, he also came with the French passport. And when I applied, I tried, after my father passed away, I tried to apply for the French passport. I went to the French embassy consulate in Jerusalem, but they told me they refused to issue me the French nationality because they told me that your father was born, he is a Chadian, and now Chad is an independent state. You can go to Chad and apply for a nationality, for the Chadian nationality. And but now, according to the Israeli law, for example, any person of Jerusalem who apply for another nationality, for example, if I apply for another nationality, they consider, and the Israelis consider us, the Palestinian people living in Jerusalem, they consider us not as citizens of Israel, but they consider us as permanent residents in Jerusalem. This means that if I apply for another nationality, I might lose this right as or this status as a permanent resident of Jerusalem, which means that they can deport me from Jerusalem, and I might lose my right to reside in Jerusalem. For this reason, the African our community prefer not to apply for another citizenship. But if we apply for the Jordanian citizenship, it's okay because the Israelis consider us as the Jordanians. But as I told you, the Jordanians refuse to issue us this citizenship. They consider us as foreigners and not as indigenous people of this.
Now, you mentioned 1948, and we know that's the year where the people that you see in Jerusalem today were placed there after World War II. Now, on your site, there's a small book or pamphlet, I should say, that was written by Charmaine Seitz called The Pilgrimage to a New Self, the African Quarter and Its People. You mentioned something about the Zionist colonization project. Would you mind to explain to the audience exactly what that is?
Can you please just repeat your answer, because
You mentioned on your site, you mentioned something about the Zionist Colonist project. What was that? What is the Zionist Colonist project?
The Zionist colonist project, the Zionists from different parties. We used to live, before 1948, Palestinians, Arabs, and Christians, and also Jews. They used to live equally. They used to live as friends and as neighbors, and they used not to have any problem between each others. But when the Zionist movement started, they tried to establish a Zionist state for the Jews in this land, and they launched a kind of propaganda, and this propaganda make big differences, or make a big dispute between Arabs, between Muslims, between Christians, between Jews, and they instigate this conflict, so that they, in order to establish their state, and they succeed in establishing this state in 1948. They demolished many, I don't know the exact number of the villages, and they demolished tens of Palestinian villages, and now we can see there is now the Palestinian refugees living outside. There are many Palestinian refugees who used to live inside this country, in Palestine. This creates a lot of problems and makes a lot of conflict between Muslim and Christians on one part, and the Jews on the other part, in order to to divide, and it's like in order to rule, divide and rule, working with this principle. So after establishing their country, they wiped up different villages. They deported many Palestinians. Many Palestinians turned to be as refugees, and now they are refugees, and they are dreaming to come back to their country. And the European Jews played a big role in this issue, because the West, the Eastern Jews who used to live in the Middle East, we used to live as neighbors. And I remember when I am as a child, our neighbor was a Jew. يعني one of our neighbors, he's a Muslim, but he's married a Jew girl, and they live normally. And we used to have no problems. But all of these problems were created after the creation of the state of Israel.
Now, because when you look at many other places on the continent of Africa, we know that they were colonized by European powers, and Israel seems to be the only one that's left out, not talked about. But we do know that currently, right now in Israel, it is a state of military colonization. Now, you made mention about how after the establishment of the Zionist state in 1948, there's been a lot of uproar in the community, people not getting along. Do you think that's a contributing factor to what we see going on now with the treatment of African immigrants in Israel today? They curse at them. Some of them get beat up. They call them Kushi. They want the Ethiopians out. They want a lot of the blacks out. Do you think the result of the Zionist establishment is what's causing the issues of today?
Well, the main founders of Israel, they are people of European origins, and the Europeans are in nature, they are racist. They are racist against particularly the black people. And you know how the different European countries colonized the different African countries, and they turned many of our brothers in this continent as slaves, and now you can see how they are, although our brothers who used to be enslaved by the Europeans, who helped in establishing or building Europe and the United States, but now they are treated very badly. You can see, for example, if you tackle the issue of immigrants, how they deal with the immigrants. The same thing apply here. Although they say that they want the Ethiopians to come here in order to increase their number, and they don't want the Jews to be less, and they don't want in the state of Israel the Muslims or the Arabs to be the majority. So they allow the immigration of Ethiopians to this country. But at the beginning, they even refused to take any blood donation from the Ethiopians. They think their blood is dirty, and and you know, most of them they are employed now, in, for example, either in the army or in the police or in the, not there. For example, we never find any Ethiopian or any black Jew, for example, running a big company. You will never find that. They work as guards and lower jobs. So they replace the Arabs. They replace the Arabs in these lower jobs, and it's kind of discrimination. They are not treating them as equally like other white Jews who came from.
Yeah, and those are the same, the white Jewish people, the Zionists that came from Poland and Ukraine. They make up the majority of the representation in Israel that you see throughout today. Now, when you read the biblical text, the Torah, it always explained the children of Israel, the Israelites, the Jews, as people of color. Now, that's not what you see in the land of Israel today. Also, even the Afro-Palestinians, our brothers who migrated from Africa, like you mentioned, you guys don't have adequate representation in Israel. Do you think that's by design?
They don't, for example, for us as African community in Jerusalem, they don't consider us as citizens of the state of Israel, and they treat us like other Palestinians. Even as you mentioned, our compounds, our community, our houses, occasionally in different types, because we are located at the main entrance to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, we we are subjected to Israeli raid by the police on several occasions. They raid our houses, they turn everything upside down, and
Wow.
they don't look at us and like as other citizens. We are not considered as citizens, as I told you. They consider us permanent residents. You are only like residents, and they not only residents, unwanted residents in this area, because they, some of our brothers, when Palestinians start to resist against occupation, some of members of our community joined with the Palestinian resistance movement against the Israeli occupation. And I don't know if you know that the first Palestinian female prisoner, she was from Nigerian origin, and she was one of our community. She was the first Palestinian. And we have two brothers also spent 17 years in prison because of their resistant occupation. And others were deported outside Jerusalem because of the engagement in the Palestinian resistance movement. So they don't look at us as I told you, as normal citizens, but they look at us as enemies, and how they treated us.
So right now, you guys are basically in the land with your enemies. That's basically what it sounds like, because if they don't look at you as citizens, anything outside of a citizen would be what's called a denizen. So they look at you as property. As you mentioned, you said you get the low jobs, the low jobs that the Arabs used to do. Now they're giving it to our people to do. Now with you mentioning that point, Musa, what are there any grassroots organizations or initiatives that actively work to address the needs and concerns of the Afro-Palestinian community?
And for us as Afro-Palestinians, we face many difficulties. And as I told you, many of our youth, they are obliged to leave schools in order to help their family and to help their families. And so for this season, the number of our communities who finish high school or finish university is very low. And we depend mostly on ourselves. We depend mostly. For example, we in the community, we have a hall. It's not that big hall, and sometimes we rent this hall in order to create income for our community, for our organization. But mostly we depend on ourselves. Sometimes the Palestinians help us, give us, support us with help, but it's not that sufficient. And a few months ago, we suffered with the electricity company, and they came in order to cut the electricity service in our community, our station, because we were not able to afford, we were not able to pay for the bills, but we managed. Finally, we managed and we solved this problem. And as I told you, and also we don't, we can apply for funding for example, from the European or from the American, but we refuse. Basically, we refuse because why? Why we refuse that? Because they put conditions. The Europeans and the Americans, they put conditions that one of the conditions that they look at the Palestinian resistance movement, even if it is non-violent. They consider this resistance as a kind of terrorism. So, if you want to fund any project, they put the condition that none of the, for example, relative of terrorists or something of the sort will benefit from this project. And we, as Palestinians, we suffered from, from the occupation and from the occupation policy. We differentiate with the US, with the Americans and with the European about about the definition of terrorism, and we don't agree with their definition of terrorism. For example, for us, we consider the state of Israel as a terrorist state, but they don't. They consider it as a democratic state. Can you imagine a democratic state that is meanwhile occupying an entire nation? And at the same time, they consider it as part of democracy. So for this reason, in order, we refuse to apply for funding, any conditioned funding from the Europeans or from the Americans.
And I applaud you. I applaud you for that. We applaud you for that, because a lot of times we know there's restrictions, there's conditions that come with a lot of these fundings, anything that has to do with money. And we definitely applaud you for that, for having the integrity not to do so and to sell your people out. There's a term in America, it's called sellout. And that's for the majority of our people who lack the spine or fortitude or integrity to do for themselves. So they tend to rely on their enemies to do for them. And like you said, like we all know, those favors come with restrictions. They come with conditions. And it's always those conditions are always at the expense of our people. With that being said, are there any current resources, like, for example, TV shows or radio shows that you have in the Palestinian and the Afro-Palestinian community that that you can use to get this word, to get this message out?
Well, actually, well, I'm sorry, we lack for this, TV or radio shows, But we depend. For example, we have friends. For example, whenever we visit, I don't know if you know Mark Clement Hill, Dr. Mark Clement Hill. He is now working in making a film about our community. And this, I think, will help us in, probably make the people know about our presence here, because many people they don't know that actually there is an African community in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem. And also, we depend on our connections. But a TV show, especially, we don't have a special TV show or radio show, because we don't have the capabilities in order to have such issues, so that announce about make the people know about ourselves.
Okay. How do you envision the future of the Afro-Palestinian community in its current occupied state? How do you see the future? What do you think is how do you envision the future of the Afro-Palestinians?
We suffer a lot, and I think we are going to face hard times in the future. But with our steadfastness, and if we continue to stay and to rely on ourselves and with our unity, I think we can overcome many difficulties. And I think I expect to face many difficulties in the future, particularly in this the current situation with this. The state that with this racist states that practice racist policies against us and against the entire Palestinian people, and with our unity, with our steadfastness in this land, in this piece of land, I think we can overcome with our unity and with the help of people from outside, who our brothers who support us. I think we can overcome overcome all these races, and we can make these policies public, so that we make the people throughout the world knows about what is going on here.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely use our platform to spread more awareness to the Afro-Palestinians community in the land of Palestine today. I would like to, I have a scripture here that I just want to read real quick for you, because you made mention how when I asked you, how do you envision the future of the Afro-Palestinians? You said, the future is going to be tough for you. But, the words of God, Musa, gives us hope. And we know that God doesn't like ugly. And we know that righteous judgment is coming to this planet Earth very soon. I want to read Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. This is Mashiach, Yeshua, Mashiach, Jesus Christ. And this is what he says. He says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So right here, Jesus Christ tells you he knows our works. He knows your works. He knows my works. He knows our tribulation. He knows our poverty. The real Jews, according to the Bible, are in a state of poverty. He says, but we are rich. Why? Because the promises of God belong to you and I. Then he turns around. He says, but he knows the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. What you're going to find out, Musa, is that the people that are running Israel today, running around calling themselves Jewish, God calls them the synagogue of Satan. Those are not the real Jews. And as long as they are in control of the land, there will forever be poverty amongst our people. Therefore, there will forever be oppression, because the current state of Palestine today is a colonized one. And they don't want people of color, Black people like you and I, ever standing up and ever ruling. So our job is to get together as brothers and bring awareness to this situation. And I wish you guys had a platform like a radio show and TV show to promote this awareness. But since you don't, we're gonna do our due diligence on our side to spread this awareness and to get this message out there to the whole planet Earth, not just here in the United States, but everywhere, the Eastern and Western hemisphere, because the whole planet Earth needs to hear this. Our people have been deceived with the lies on social media in regards to the state of Palestine, and the synagogue of Satan always making themselves out to be the victims, when it's people like you and I are the true victims, because we are the oppressed, we are the hidden, and we are the ones that have been spiritually colonized as well, and physically. So is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience? Any other thing that you would like to express?
The main thing that it's, as you mentioned, that we need to be united and to have in a kind of networking with each other, and so that to join our efforts. I think this will help and will give us more power in order to get rid of all the racist policies that is practiced against us. With our unity through different parts of the world, I think we can make a change. And without unity, I think we will not be able to, for example, some individuals here work, or some group other working there. But with unity, if we put all of our forces together, I think we can make a change, and a real change in this world. Absolutely.
Well said. That's perfectly said. And with that, we do plan on staying in contact with you. We definitely don't want to lose contact. And like I said, we'll do our due diligence on our side to spread more awareness about the Afro-Palestinians who are in the land today. And we'll definitely stay in contact, Musa. We thank you for your time. Thank you for giving us this opportunity for this small interview, okay?
I really thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about our community, about our suffering, and for sure we'll be on contact.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for everything. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Shalom.
You are always welcome. Bye-bye. Bye.
What is the nation? Nation is men leading by example.